Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Melissa here, and I am about to do another mixed media piece with you today. So I have got a cradled board there. It is gessoed. It is an 8 by 10 inch. I picked this up at Michael's. I do have links to some of my items in my description, and I will have a full list for you for everything that I used in this video. So those come in on raw wood, and I just put some gesso on top. I let that dry, and now I'm going in here with a charcoal pencil. I'm holding it, as you can see, at the very back of the pencil there. I just want to get some lines down on that nice blank white board just to get started. I don't know exactly where this is going to go because this is going to be an intuitive piece, which just means that I am going to start doing something and react to it by just looking to see what's on the board there and moving on from there. So I have a selection of Golden brand fluid acrylics out in front of me there. That's a new one that I just got. That is green gold. It's such a pretty color. This that I'm putting down now is Alizarin Crimson, and I like the way they look together. Alizarin Crimson is like that kind of blood red color. And I'm adding a little bit of water and just moving those all around the board. And an interesting thing is happening. The paints, of course, are mixing and blending as they move around there, but because those are acrylics, when they dry, they are also going to seal that charcoal pencil in there. So that's a nice little bonus effect that I got there. I added a little bit of black on there because I want the darkness down in that bottom left-hand corner where I like to have it. I'm also adding a little more water just to get that paint moving around. And as you can see, the colors are blending. The green and the red are blending, which, might not be what you want for everything, but I like what's happening here in that instant. I'm adding a little bit of the fluorescent pink in as well. Sorry about the strobe light effect there. My one light for my filming rig is one of the wires is going bad, so I do end up remedying this right here. So, okay, I got all of the paint down on there, and I'm just taking some painter's tape because I want to get a nice crisp black edge around everything. I typically edge my pieces at the very end, and I use my foam roller, and I usually will just take that up onto the edge to get a little bit of a blended black edge going into the piece, but I wanted this to be nice and sharp. And I wanted it there now because sometimes I will do that with my pieces because it kind of lets me see a little bit more of what they're going to look like finished, or to at least have that finished edge on there. I can always go in and touch up if I need to, but it gives me a good idea with what I'm working with as I go so that in my mind I can see the more polished look that I'm gonna get with that edge on there. So I just went in with my foam roller there. Like I said, that's the quickest and best way that I've found to do the sides, but I did go in and go over it with a brush, pulling away from the edge, so just in case there was any air pockets or anything, I would not get paint up underneath the tape and still get that nice hard line, which as you can see I did. And then I let that dry, taped off the other sides, and did the same there as well. So here I am going to make some collage paper to use with this piece because I decided I wanted some nice black and white stripes, and we're going to go for like a psycho-circus theme, I guess. So what I've got there is Duralar, which is a plastic synthetic paper, I guess. It's very similar to Yupo paper. You can use it in the same way. And I'm doing this to make stripes on my 8 by 10 inch gel plate. Now, you can use regular paper to do this. However, you have to be really, really careful because when you use your brayer on here, the paper strips want to get bound up and they wind around the brayer, so you have to just be extremely careful. It is possible, I've done it, but I do really recommend using something a little heavier like the Yupo or Duralar, or even like maybe a very glossy magazine sheet, because they tend to stick to the gel plate a little bit better and you don't have to worry so much about the strips peeling up. So I laid those strips down and put some titanium white on. I let the white dry completely, took the strips off, and now I'm just applying some Mars Black over top of there. And once I get that all rolled out, I'm going to just take a sheet of paper. I'm using tissue paper here, And I'm doing that because I like to do most of my collage pieces with tissue paper. I let that dry completely. Didn't take too long. I actually used a hair dryer, so it just took a minute or two. And I've got my nice black and white stripes there. So my original thought, which you can see that I'm kind of doing here, was to measure off some of those areas that I had already drawn in with the charcoal pencil and fill them in with the striped collage paper there that I had made. So I do start doing that, but I very quickly decided that I didn't want to be that structured or rigid with it, and that my best course of action was going to be just kind of winging it like I typically do, because that's something that I have found in my own work. And you can let me know, those of you that are also intuitive artists, if you feel the same way about your own work. Let me know in the comments. But I find that I am happier with the outcome of my pieces if I don't overplan. And sometimes that even means starting out with any kind of idea. I mean, I really didn't with this one. I just had some new art supplies that I wanted to play around with. I grabbed the first random thing I saw, which was my charcoal pencil, and then I made these collage papers. And once I decided to let go of the idea of filling in these predetermined areas, I really started to like the way that the piece was going and the direction that it was moving in. So I go ahead and glue down that first piece that I measured and cut off there, and I'm using Liquitex matte gel medium. That's the more liquid one there. I have the heavier gel one also. I use them both interchangeably. Use whatever you like best, but just make sure that you put down a good layer before you put the piece down, and then again on the top so it doesn't come up. Now you can see there where I'm pointing to that red that came through on the top. That is some of the red paint underneath, because when I laid that matte gel medium down, I was able to accidentally scrape some of that black paint that I had on the edging off there. So it's not a big deal. I will just go in when I'm all done and touch up anything that needs touched up, because now that I decided to put this collage on, there may be other spots that need touched up around that edge too, because I'm going to want to make sure that is a nice hard edge all the way around. But so I very quickly abandoned the idea of cutting those predetermined shapes that I had made with the charcoal pencil, and I decided to just kind of go with it and see what happened. So I start just gluing things down and working from there. Once I have one piece glued down, I look and think, okay, what's going to look best next? And that's kind of the formula that I follow through this piece and through a lot of my work. I really just like to react to what's going on. Now, I will pay attention to things like balance and composition as I am doing this. I don't pay attention to those things too much from the very beginning, because as you saw, I like to add various layers, and that's just how my work develops. So you saw me add the first layer of the charcoal pencil, and then I added a bunch of different inks and things on top of it. But I don't worry at that point, because a lot of that's probably going to get covered up anyway, because I never know exactly what I'm going to be doing next. And I am using collage here, so you can see I am actively covering up a lot of what's already down there. But I know that this layer of collage is probably going to be the only one that I add. So once I get done adding all of these different pieces of the black and white striped paper, the most I might do beyond that is a little bit of line work. I haven't decided at this point yet, but so I do want to start taking into consideration a little bit of composition and a little bit of balance. Now, I don't overthink those either, because that's something that, after being an artist for my whole entire life, but probably about 30 years now semi-professionally, it just comes naturally to me. So I don't have to put a lot of pre-planning and a lot of thought into those artistic elements. I can definitely, don't get me wrong, it's not always perfect, and it sometimes doesn't work out, but I can see that pretty quickly and notice. And that's what I mean sometimes when, if you've heard me say in my other videos, and I'll say that again here, Sometimes I get stuck because I don't like the way a piece is going and I will walk away from it from a while, sometimes overnight. One of the things that will definitely jump out to me the next time I look at it is if something is off with the balance or with the composition. Not so much the color necessarily. That one always seems to come to me while I'm working. But if your balance and composition are off, that's going to be really obvious. So if you do find that you're having troubles with one of your pieces, walk away for a while, and you might be surprised that when you come back, that could possibly be the problem that you're having. But I'm just going on here, and you'll notice that I'm cutting mostly triangular pieces there. I honestly don't even really know why. It's just the shape that I chose this time. I like specifically how that shape works with the striped paper. Just a personal preference there. So as I'm finishing up with these, I'm trying to think about my next step and what that's going to be. I really like the way it looks. I could leave it there, but something about it is bugging me a little bit that it's kind of unfinished. So I'm thinking I might go in and do just a little bit of fine line work with it, because that is often a way that I can make something that I'm not feeling looks finished to feel a little bit more so. So I'm using my Micron pen there, and I believe that's a 0.01. I will double check that for you. And I'm just going in and I'm outlining some of the elements. I'm outlining those pink drip marks, and then I decide to go around each of those pieces of collage paper and do a very sketchy line, not exactly touching them, but you can see there, it's just going around all of the edges. And then I start to color in some of the joining parts of those lines and also accentuating and exaggerating the points on the tips there. It really kind of just added to that overall whimsical circusy kind of feel to it, and I like the direction that it was taking. So I went ahead and finished outlining all of those elements, and it was still missing something to me. So I decided to add some little like swirly kind of things. I don't know what you'd call it, but I'm going to show you here in a second. I'm just going off of some of those pieces because, again, that shape just sort of fit along with everything else, and it gives a dark circus vibe to it, and I don't really know how else to describe it any better than that. That's what the feeling I get from it. You can let me know what you think. But yeah, I went ahead and added some of those in, thought it was done, but then decided to go back in here real quick and just add dots to the tips of all of those, and then I finally called it finished, and here we go. I sprayed this with my Krylon Crystal Clear Triple Thick Acrylic Spray, which I will have a link for you in the description. I spray all of my pieces with that. Really happy with the way it turned out. It was a lot of fun. I especially love working with that black and white collage paper. I'm going to be doing a video here coming up where I show you how I make a lot of my commonly used papers. Some of it's very simple stuff. It's all actually pretty simple, but I've never compiled it all into one video, and I've had some people ask, so I will absolutely be doing that. But thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. If you liked what you saw here, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I put out a new video every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you again next week. Have a great day.